Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I wish you could have seen yourself how amazing you look. I know it's the last talk of the last day of the talks of the conference. I know some of you are joining workshops tomorrow, but you made it so far. Let's just hang in there. This is the last one. We're gonna get through this together. Don't worry. So they did a very great presentation for me. So I'm gonna just quickly go through introducing myself. I'm Zamzam. I'm working as an engineering manager at a company called Vio Technologies. I've been doing iOS since 2015, so it's been a couple of years that I'm doing this. And currently, I'm working at Vio. So here, this is a fun thing I thought you should know, that there was people from NHK came to our office in Denmark and made this video from our company. So it has Japanese subtitle as well, so if you're interested, you can go and check it out. But what I do is that I work at Biotechnologies, and we have that green camera over there that is used for recording a sport, like football matches mostly, but other sports as well. And then we do AI on top of that. And our mission is to make sport technology accessible to everyone. Cool, I'm going to move forward. So I was really looking forward to find a code that would make sense for my talk. I could not find one, so I'll just create this one. So for those of you who are a movie fan, it's like, so iOS development is as in Matrix. It's like there's no spoon. It's not the code that bends. It's only yourself as you learn and adapt to new technologies. So every year at WWDC, there are new things coming out, and all of us have this urge of, oh, we need to learn everything, but time is limited, so we cannot. And then sometimes people spend more time, sometimes people spend less time. So what I'm hoping to give you today is that I'm hoping to give you like a walkthrough of little and big things that got released at WWDC. I'm going to say it this year because it doesn't make sense to say it last year. But anyway, so that's the purpose of this talk. Hope you enjoy it. And you're all caffeinated enough to get through this talk. I want you to raise your hands with these questions. So how many of you are using a UI kit on a daily basis? OK, cool. They're still there. Good. How many are using SwiftUI on a daily basis? OK, yes, a lot more hands. How many are supporting iOS 13, 14, or below? OK, not that many, I see. Supporting iOS 15, 16, and above? OK, great. And there's one more. Who is only supporting iOS 17? OK. OK, so everything you're going to learn here, you'll be able to use maybe in a few years. So hopefully, not everything, but most of them. Hopefully, you'll keep them in mind. So yes, the first part of the talk is going to be about what everyone can use. And there is something good about this talk, that if you lose focus at any point, you can just look up and pick up from there. So there is no need to be with me on every slide. I would appreciate that. But for those of you who want to check Twitter on the middle of the way, there is no problem. So you can keep up with me. So everything that you can all are using, most of you, I would assume, is Xcode. So let's go through some of the cool features that Xcode 15 has. So it has enhanced code editing, which means you get the completion based on the name of the file, finally. I think you've noticed this, that it does automatically give you the completion. If you name the file correctly, then it will give you that. Then you have method options preview. So when you press the right arrow, it gives you all the initializer of the available initializer for what you're searching for. Then you have smart, so the smart modifiers will be presented to you. So for instance, if you're using font, you've already had that, then it will give you the font weight. Then code completion for images and colors. So we don't have to use external libraries to create those for us. Xcode does that for us now. We have bookmark. This is one of my favorites. You can mark places in your code, so you don't have to write to do or note or whatever you usually do to find your code in the Xcode, so you can bookmark it and use it as a to-do list. So it could be as your to-do list, and you can go through the bookmark, and there is a bookmark tab right over there that you can see all the bookmarks that you have. And then you can use it to save search queries. So if you are searching something quite frequently, then you can use bookmark to save that. Source control navigator. So right now, if you're using Xcode for your source control, currently you can review your changes right within the Xcode. You can stage, unstage, or discard files right within the Xcode, and you can also change code within the Xcode. Testing. So Apple said that tests are faster, like 45% faster. I have not tested this, so I'm not sure, but I'm going to trust Apple on that. Updated test navigator, so you have a pretty much pretty nice test navigator now for to see your test result in Xcode. Documentation. So for those of you who are working, who have worked with documentation, you know that it didn't used to update real time, but now it does. So if you're documenting something, you can just see it live over there, which is a real-time server, especially when you're working with Doc-C. Debug console. So right now, console fully supports OS log, so you can filter on log data. You can there is a jump to source option. So like from the log section, you can select the jump to source option, and it will take you to the part of the code that gave this log. And yes, Xcode Cloud. So for those of you who are using Xcode Cloud, now you can add test notes right within the Xcode. So that's pretty nice. And animation over there, app icon. So you remember, I think all of us have this, that you need to generate icons for all the sizes that are possible in Apple Watch and Mac OS and iPad if you had it. But now Xcode takes care of that, so you just upload one image, and then everything else is basically done by Xcode. You don't need to do anything else. So what are the game changers this year? So this is very opinionated. These are the game changers in my opinion. So one of them is macros. So you had a great talk yesterday about how to write tests with macros. So that's, in my opinion, like macros in general are a game changer that got announced this year. And observation framework, which is like something that you use for data flow. I'm going to talk about it a bit later. And Swift data. Macros. So macros, as most of you might know, it's a part of the Swift packages and the SDK, and it just generates code for you, so you don't have to repeat yourself over and over again. And some of the famous macros are preview. So this is used in SwiftUI for generating preview. And then you have another one, which is predicate, which is for Swift data. And you have the observable, which is from the observation framework. And you have the model, which is for Swift data. And you can, of course, write your own macros and write tests for them as well. Life before observation. So for those of you who are not supporting only iOS 17, this must be very familiar for you. So you had this like a view model that conforms to observable object, and then you have like published properties inside that, or like some properties are not published, and then you have a view that then conforms has a state object or an observed object that has an instance of the view model, and then you can use those published properties in your SwiftUI view to get the updates and have that binding between the two. Life after observation is that you will have, so the syntax will change. So now you don't have a view model that conforms to observable object, whereas now you have an at observable class view model, which is a macro. And then in your SwiftUI, and then you don't need to mark your properties published anymore. So everything by default is observed by SwiftUI if it's used in SwiftUI. And then you will have, you don't need to use a state object anymore, so you can just use a state. And then have an instance of your view model. So there is this change if you're using observation framework. And then the difference between the two is that if you don't want to get the updates view model properties, then you have to make them ignored so that it doesn't basically ignores them. So with observable macro, you don't need to have you don't need to use combine anymore. You would use observation framework, and you don't need to. So the syntax will change from that to this one, and then you don't need to use published properties anymore. The state object, observed object, and environment object will now be, you can just use a state, bindable, environment, or nothing else. So that's kind of like a big change for those of you who are using combine if you want to use observations, so that you have to like do these changes in your code base. And it increases performance of SwiftUI. There is a great article by Swift Lee who basically walks you through why it increases the performance. But in short, the reason for it is that when you use a observed object, then not only so if you have like 10 published properties in your observed object model, and you use that in your view redraws itself even though it's not using all of the published properties. Whereas in this case, when you're using the observation framework, it will only redraw if the property that it is using has been changed. But go through the article, it gives some good info inside why it's really different. Swift data. So what is it? I think most of you have heard, and there is a great workshop tomorrow by Paul who will walk you through this. So it's a very nice framework that is used for persistent, and it's made made to use very nice with SwiftUI, and it's declarative, and it is really easy to get started with it. So that's a very big thing that Apple has released this year, and it's going to make the persistence of data in the app much easier. Enhanced animation. So there has been quite a lot of changes in animations. One of them is the phase animator. So in the phase animator, you can now have multiple phases of your animation. And then, so here in this case, we will have like you can declare what happens in each phase. So in this case, I'm rotating this globe and I'm scaling it. So you can define what happens at each phase of the animation. Then you can have it to run with for instance, if someone taps on your image, so that's when to trigger the animation. And then there is another part where you can basically just have different animation run through different phases. So you can say if it's phase 1, do this, phase 2, do this. So this will give you a very good control over basic animations. The other thing is the phase animator, which is used when you want to basically wrap animations inside. So you have multiple animations that are using the same phases. So in this case, you can use this phase animator as a wrapper. The other thing that got released is that now you have a completion block in with animation. So if you're using with animation, now you can have a completion block that is mostly used if you are running some animation and you want to say, okay, after that animation is done, then I want to do this. So you can use this for that. But these are very basic examples. I have a very good suggestion for you here, which is to check out this library by Paul Hudson. This is an amazing library that has mind-blowing animations over there. So I definitely recommend you to check this out. It's pretty nice. Okay, moving on from animation. So there are some changes to the current modifiers that we have. One of them is onChange. So for those of you who use the onChange or are using onChange, there has been a change to it. So right now there is so if you're running, so you might have seen this, that right now if you're using onChange on iOS 17, then you get a warning that you can use onChange with 0 or 2 parameters. So right now, for instance, you need to change it to this old and new value or don't have anything at all. So you need to change your code to this, and there are these tiny changes that every year Apple announces, and it gives you more basically control over the modifiers. Another thing is this visual effect. So visual effect is based on Apple. It is, I'm going to read this from the Apple documentation. Visual effects change the visual appearance of a view without changing its ancestor or descendants. What it means is that like whatever changes you make to this view, and if it has a subview, it doesn't change that. So it's only a map to this view only. And there we had a lot of visual effects from before, like saturation, opacity, rotation, and now they're all conform to this visual effect. Scroll view. Scroll view has a lot of updates, and I see that I don't have a lot of time, so I'm gonna move quickly through these. If you are working with scroll view, I definitely suggest you to check out the full documentation. It's a lot of new features in scroll view. So these are the ones that I thought were most important, so I'll keep them here. One of them is the container relative frame, which is based on Apple. It positions the view within an invisible frame with a size relative to the nearest container. I mean, like, I didn't really get what it does when I read the documentation, but what it really does is that you can use it with something like this. You can say, okay, it's a horizontal or a vertical, for instance, a scroll view, and then you give it a count of 6, a span of 3, and a spacing of 10, and you get this result. And how you get that result is that, so it will basically by 6, you're saying that I want my horizontal view to be divided to 6 parts, and I want each of my item to take 3 of those 6 parts. So in this case, it will be half of the view. There is also an easier way to get the same result, which is using a different initializer of that same modifier. So in this case, you will say, okay, I want every item to have half of the length of the view. Another thing with scroll view is what is it? Oh yeah, okay, a scroll target layout. So this is when you use this is not the important part, but the important part with this is that you get to have the other one beneath it, which is the other modifier, which will allow you to choose what sort of scroll you want to have, whether you want it to be paginated or view aligned. And the difference between two is that when you use the paging, it will just page through when you scroll, but when you use the view align, it will go to the next item. So that's what this modifier does. So you need to use them together. Then we have scroll position. So now you have a way of knowing where your scroll is and have like a binding between the two of them. And so the way it works is that you can have a state object and a state variable, and then map that state to the position of your scroll view. So then whenever the scroll changes, if you have both ways, so your state variable gets updated, and if you update the state variable, your position of the scroll changes. Okay, another scroll view. Scroll transition. So this is pretty nice if you do want to have custom transition for your scroll view. So you can use this as scroll transition to make very, very custom transitions for your items. I think this is the last one, but let's see. So the other one is the content. So now you have more control over the spacing of your scroll view, which means that you have content margin and the safe area padding, which gives you more control over the spacing of the scroll view. And with the content margin, you can also have it specify whether you want it to be from the scroll indicator or the scroll content. So you have more control over where the spacing should be. I'm gonna go forward. Tip kit. This is really nice. So it's very obvious from the name. So it is used for showing tip to users. And the way you can implement it is that you can just have a tip struct, and then it will have to conform to the tip protocol, and then you can have like an image, a title, a description, or other data. So these are mandatory. I think that these 3 are mandatory, and then you can have more options. And then the way you use it is that you use this tip view and you use this tip kit within that, and then you have to configure the frequency of your tip kit and also the where to store the data of how much it has been shown through the app. What next? Content unavailable view. So now there is a content unavailable view by default, so you don't have to design anything. If you want to just show an empty page, you can use this. There is also a default one, which is search. So you have a default content unavailable for search views. SF symbol. I know that Lil also did an amazing presentation yesterday with the SF symbol animations and what you can do. So I'm just going to go through it very, very quickly because these are not remotely as interesting as what you saw yesterday. But you would have an image, which like a system image, and then you can have a symbol effect, which will have an effect, which can be appear, disappear, or other things. And then you can have options for repeating, non-repeating, and how many times you want it to repeat. And then you have a value which will monitor the changes of the animations for triggering the animation. Then we get to the deprecated modifier. So every year there are some modifiers that get deprecated. Here are, oh, what happened? Yes, so some of them are here. You can see, and there is a full list. There's actually a lot of them in the Apple documentation. So if you want to see like what the modifiers have been deprecated, you can check out the documentation. And by that, we get to the fun part, shortcuts. This is my favorite, so Xcode shortcuts. And these are my top shortcuts. So command 0 will toggle the navigator. The command, this one, the command option 0 will toggle the inspector. This one, the command Shift F will be a global search, so it will like activate the global search in your Xcode. Command Shift O, it will open quickly. And then there is a brand new shortcut this year, which is Command Shift A, which you can access all of Xcode so you can access everything, like the menu option from Command Shift A. And with that, I am done. Thank you. Arigatou gozaimasu. It's been great to be here. And yes, that's it. Thanks.